Hello, everyone. This is Jeff Harry with Rediscover Your Play, and I have the amazing Julia De Caneva and Lauren Yee. Can you both introduce yourself as we are going to be diving into a death chat today?
Lauren, I'll throw it to you.
Great. I'm Lauren, as previously mentioned. I am a cultivator of curiosity and I love chatting about anything and everything. So I'm basically very excited to be here with you all.
And I'm Julia. I have an insatiable curiosity and I work as an intentional living coach.
And you know what I love, Julia, about as you were talking, I was like, I need to take a deep breath. Like, your posters are so good.
I always point to them for people. Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, yes. Okay, yes. So Julia, dive us into these death cards, as you were.
Yeah. So there's this really wonderful game called the Death Deck, and I can actually show you the top of the box. They try to keep it a little lighthearted.
It's very cute.
It's very cute. It has sort of a Day of the Dead vibe. And I was just really excited to have a game. It's kind of in the same vein of any card game, like Cards Against Humanity, except all of the prompts are about death and dying, and some of them are like logistical, and some of them are emotional, and others are a little more playful. So it's been really fun to look through it myself, and I'm excited to share it today, finally, with people who are actually interested and not like, what is wrong with you? Why is there a game that's about death?
Right, because last time we were kind of talking about how death is sort of like a weirdly taboo thing, oftentimes, at least in our culture in the United States. And so you mentioned this last time, and I was like, oh, what's that? It sounds really like not specifically like lighthearted, because like it is, but it's like a safer way to like dip your toe in the pool without it being scary.
Yeah.
And also there is something like, it's weird to combine play and death together, but I have seen people that have passed away, that the ones that are most playful near the end of their life, those experiences and funerals are the best. You know, like I think of like Tuesdays with Maury, you know, where he like in that book, great book by the way, but like he had a live funeral where he laid on his couch and his friends kind of just shared all the things they loved about him, and it was like in a kind of playful way, but also this guy was dying. Or Randy Pausch with his last lecture, where he gave like a lecture and that was his last lecture, but it was about his whole life. So I like the combination of this. This excites me.
Give you some duality in your day.
Balance, all those things.
All of those amazing things. That's actually a really amazing segue, and you didn't even know it, into one of the cards. So I'm going to read this one. It's multiple choice, so I'll read the question and then the three answers. If given a choice to watch how others grieve you at your funeral, would you? A, yes, that would be an amazing experience. B, I'd try it, but if they got too sad or suspiciously happy, I'm out. Or C, no, it would be crushing.
Ooh. If you could watch
you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Does any? I mean, we also don't have to do like full answer, but we like sort of talk through our thinking too.
Yeah.
Totally.
I can go.
Start us off.
Yeah. So it's interesting because, you know, I've made a will, and part of the will is I want to be cremated. I want people to go to 3 different spots in the world to spread my ashes. But really, the reason I'm picking these spots is I'm like, you should really check out these spots. They're really dope spots.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if I get dropped off there, great. But if I don't, whatever. But it's more for you. It would be awesome for you to do it. So I think if I would want people to grieve, you know, I mean, people can do whatever they want to do, right? I don't want to like tell people how they to grieve, because everyone grieves a different way. But I definitely want my funeral to be party-like atmosphere, you know, like watch some of my stupid videos there and have like a party and do a dance off. And I'd want it to be like a festive place. And people can cry and laugh and do all the duality things at the same time. But yeah, that's kind of how I would feel about it.
I think my first reaction is like, oh yeah, like my curiosity about that would be I'd be so interested to see maybe more what they would say, maybe more like hear the eulogy than the watching of the grieving. But then I get caught up because I'm like, but I can't change it. So then if I have this like experience that I don't like, it feels like, ooh. And so then I'm like, okay, maybe I'm in the camp of like, no, not because it would be crushing, but because I like just don't need to be there for it. Maybe that. I think that's
because it's the question of would you like to be there to see it, right? Is that?
Yeah, if given a choice to watch how others.
Oh yeah, I don't need to watch
at your funeral.
I had there's like the curiosity part of me also kind of was like, oh. And then I was like, I'm not sure which way I'd go on this, because I think part of my curiosity, I think, is like, I don't like to watch people grieve, because it could be like, you know, where you're like, oh, this is kind of like crushing, because it's like if people are really sad and like that's because of me, but like not because, but it's kind of because that. But it's like, because like I don't want to see people sad, but it's good to have like feelings. And some people might be like the kind of like celebration of life thing where they like remembering all these good things. I feel like my curiosity part is almost more of just like, I don't know, it's like unnecessary at that point, but I'm just like, who's showing up to grieve? Like who, like there's like a curiosity of that, but also at the same time, I'm just like, emotions are great. I have many of them, but I don't have a lot of them outwardly sometimes, especially when it's like really those like not necessarily scary, but like heightened, vulnerable, like with people you may or may not know, especially like at a funeral, you're like, I know some of these people and I don't know like 80% of these people. And so I feel like that's a really interesting place to see people also kind of be in that like moment of like feelings, but also like weird feelings about other people. And I don't know, I like think I'm overthinking it.
That are going down. You're like, oh, look who's sitting with who. Oh my gosh.
Like I think like seeing people grieve, I feel like the action, I don't know if I'd need like almost like that just as like a checklist, but just the like, well, who, because like, are there people that maybe I was important to that I'm not even realizing in my life, which I feel like that's the part where I'm like if people knew like who would show up or not show up, and like not in any judgment way, but I'm just like, oh, like that neighbor that I had that we like hung out a little, but I didn't think we were that close, but they're here. I feel like that would be a really almost just like reflective, retrospective thing, but I don't know if it's something I need.
Julia, now you have to answer.
Oh, yeah. I was like, wait, what?
Would you want to see people grieve?
I think like, no, at the end of the day. Like, I am curious. I remember seeing on Post Secret 100 million years ago, someone's secret was like, I wish something bad would happen so I could see who cared. That always stuck with me. And so I think it's that same sense of like, I would love to have a kind of big picture view of like who I mattered to, I think. And like
impact kind of, or like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that would be interesting.
Because that's also different. Like that's like what you just said about the post secret thing. Like it's like unfortunate feeling, but it's like I wish something bad would happen, or like that there was like more of an announcement, because that's different than like Jeff, you had referenced the like living wait, because that's like you would invite friends and family and people you know, but you don't actually know the people you don't know.
Right.
And like there's no way of knowing that until it's like too late. Oh man. Ooh.
I mean, but there's something, and this sounds so nerdy, but there's something about like almost similar to Google Analytics, where you go, here are the list of all the people that you've affected in your life. Imagine if you got like a spreadsheet or something.
Perfect
like
stats,
that.
yeah.
Because there is a ripple effect that you have in your life, and they may not even reference it as you, but they, you know, I say this a bunch on a lot of the podcasts that I do, like, when you show up, you give permission to other people to show up, and then they give permission to other people. So it's just, imagine what that might feel like. And then imagine to see that. I wish you could see that when you're living, because then you could be, oh, my life actually really does matter, and matter even more than I ever thought it did.
On that same vein, it's like like you said, like some people don't know that it's you exactly, where it's like, oh, that like person on that train who did that nice thing for that lady, whoever that was, and you don't know, you will probably never run into them again. And to like put it into more graspable perspective for like me or people like me, like I understand that idea too, but then the flip side of it of like, okay, there are so many people that I'm sure that they don't know that I think that they did something great for me.
Right.
And you're just like, oh, but like I should probably tell them.
Yeah.
Because it's, why not?
I mean, I wrote my high school teacher during the quarantine, and I usually reach out to her every 5 or so years, but I think it was when I got into the New York Times, and I was like, hey, this is you. Part of the reason why I've done all the stuff to lead up to where I am right now is partly because of you, and what you did in your class when you ran this one random workshop,
Yeah. I had a similar experience recently. My calculus teacher in high school, sort of very unknowingly, I mean, he knew that he helped me a lot with calculus because I was awful at it, but he supported me so much, and it was the beginning of like my deconstructing perfectionism and needing to hold on to outcomes, and it really started in his class. And I just sent him an email in March because I have been thinking so much about him as I go into my coaching. It's like my whole life is different because of my calculus class, but not because I did anything related to calculus, really. And it was really, he did respond, and he was very gracious, but just sending it off felt so wonderful. I was like, I just want to tell everybody now all the things that are like important to me about them and my experience with them. Yeah.
It seems like it's like the seeing, like the act of grieving in like a checkbox way, like on the card, is like not as important, but it's like all the periphery things that it can relate to. But that's like, of course, could be so different depending on like, well, what is like, even I think Jeff, you were saying like are you cremated, or are you like, is it like an open casket thing? Like there's like so many different things, because that can spark so many different things in other people too. But yeah, like that specifically being like, I want to see people grieve, like that feels like not something that I need.
Totally.
Well, there's a certain level of, and maybe this is wrong to say, but a certain level of selfishness to be like, yeah, look at that. Yeah, you missed me too. Oh, I didn't even know you missed me, and a part of me, and I believe in something, that there is something greater. What that is, I have no idea what that is. So I kind of feel like I'd be in that place where I would have let go of worldly possessions. And one of the worldly possessions would be, who's thinking about me,
Like
right?
ego.
Like, or am I going to or I'm going to be a little petty about it and be like, that guy didn't show up. I can't believe Lauren Yee didn't show up to my funeral. She really did not care about me. Like am I really going to be that angry at the end? Like,
I'm like, I hope not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope there's a version where I've let that go. Yeah.
But I do, wow, maybe C.S. Lewis wrote this book about death, and I think it was about heaven and purgatory, and I remember, I forgot what the book name was, but in it there was a bus that could take you to heaven, but there were a lot of people that didn't want to get on the bus because they didn't want to let go of the world that they lived in, that they had just left. So the bus would come every day and you could go anytime you wanted, but a lot of people just kind of lingered because they didn't want to leave. They weren't ready to leave. So they kind of like just hung around, even though they were distant, from Earth, just kind of haunting people a little bit.
As you do, I guess. Yeah, I realized, I don't know, in my recent history, realized that a big part of my sort of ongoing fear of death growing up was really just FOMO. Like the idea that I would just miss out on all of the things. And that was a really helpful realization, because then I was like, oh, so if I can live with intention and do what I'd like to do, then I know that I've tried to do the things that I wanted to do, and that's it. And then I was like,
so the FOMO will kind of dissipate because you're doing
doing the things. Yeah. So far so good on that.
That is really interesting too, because even from a individual, like there's the fear or the whatever is coming with death things, there's like the individual feelings, but then that makes me also think of, if someone who does pass away, it like really like widens the spectrum kind of. It's like the FOMO and the there's like the good stuff and like not necessarily the bad stuff, but it's like you hopefully remember like all these good things, but then you're like sad about all the things that they're missing out on.
Yeah.
Like death becomes a missing out hurdle. I don't know.
Yeah, it's
category.
almost like we're grieving for them missing out on things, which is kind of weird because we don't even know if they wanted those or didn't want those. But, and I think that especially happens when it's someone younger, right? Like that shouldn't have died yet. Like a Kobe Bryant or a Chadwick Boseman or something. You're like, oh, you still had your whole life in front of you. Or like a child, when a child dies, like people are so sad because they're like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. There is something really powerful about what you just said, though, about the FOMO part, because it's like, it's right there. I remember someone was asking me yesterday, she goes, if you were going to die like in a year, or you're going to die in a few years, like, what would you do differently? And I'm like, I'm kind of really enjoying what I'm doing right now. Like, I am. And she was like, okay, well, then I guess, I was like, I guess I would like to speak to more people or travel to more, but I kind of also so it's a good indicator that if that answer of what would you do in a year or 2 years, and it doesn't match up at all with what you're doing right now, then you really have to relook at your life and be like, what am I doing?
Totally true.
Because then you actually understand what living is, because you've embraced what dying is.
There's a card that I pulled that, like, it made me think of it. The question is, if you could find out the age at which you'll die, would you want to know? And then there's yes, it would let me maximize every minute. B, no way, that would send my anxiety into overdrive. And C, only if it's happening tomorrow.
Ooh, these questions. I love these questions, and also I hate these questions.
Totally.
Oh, Lauren, you're gonna have to take that one first. I don't know if I can. I'm just like, I have anxiety just thinking about answering that question.
So, like, not to put this on Jeff, but I feel like Jeff probably doesn't want to know. It seems like it's stressing him out.
Yeah.
I
mean,
It's stressing
anxiety.
me out to even decide which one I want to pick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so it was basically like, yes, I want to know, no, I don't, or
Mhm.
only if it's tomorrow.
It's happening
really soon.
tomorrow. Like it's really soon.
Ooh. My immediate, I overthink these sometimes because I'm like, is that what I think? That's what I think. That's not what I, maybe it's not what if, is that really what I think? But my initial response is like, I don't think I'd want to know because I think it's hard because you would get a choice in acting differently, but it's kind of like Jeff was saying that, I mean, maybe there are certain things that like you could choose to take action, do in terms of like, I want to travel. But like, if I'm acting in the daily life the way that I want to, or reaching out to who I want to, or whatever, I think that like, if I knew, I think it would like really, like if you don't know, or if you do know, there's like the two versions of like, you would like change and do a lot better, or like really be like, oh my God, and like maybe do nothing, or like procrastinate, or like then worry for too long. So then I'm thinking, part of me is just like, no, I don't want to know, because that's like where I'm at in normal human life. It's like, we don't know. And I feel like that it feels like it feels the most, if you're aware enough to try to do like the non-FOMO, do what you want thing, and if you're in close enough to that space, that is like, no, I think that I'm good how things are kind of going. Although it does, that last one of, if it's tomorrow, like, should I call like everybody today that I need to?
Right.
That's the kicker. Yeah.
Or would I?
It's that C question that kind of, it's the last one.
Yeah, it's like, no, but maybe the last one.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. There are pros and cons to each that I think of, right? So the first one of like, okay, you get to know what age you die. Well, let's say it was 85. Would I then, being that I'm like 42 right now, like, would I be like, oh, I got 43 years. Now I'm not going to do anything. Like, I got plenty of time. I got half of my life left. And that wouldn't be a good thing. But, if it was like, you're going to die at 45, then it would be like, whoa, I have 3 years. What do I want to do in these 3 years? What do I want to do? So there's like pros and cons to that. What's the second one? Not knowing
The
at
second
all.
one is no way that would send my anxiety into
So the second one is what we have, right? Where we are currently at. How was that? And again, it's pros and cons, because someone that truly understands how to die and is okay right now dying would be living their life, while someone else might be procrastinating, being like, I'm going to live forever, which is a super dangerous thing that I think a lot us humans believe, that we're untouchable, nothing's ever going to touch us, and we need like a pandemic or somebody that we know dying or something happening to us for us to be like, oh, I'm not invincible, right? And then the third one is like, come on, man. The third one is almost like the procrastinator's delight, where it's just be like, hey, you only have 24 hours. Good luck.
Yeah.
And then I think of, what would I do in those 24 hours? Would I spend all of my time saying goodbye to people? And then also, if that's the case, then I'm not living in the moment, because I'm on the phone the whole time being like, hey, by the way, I'm dying tomorrow. And here are all the things I have to say. Oh no, you have things to say to me? I gotta go. I have
more people to call.
Like,
I don't have time for that.
I need to contact.
Yeah.
And how do you even identify who you're gonna call?
Totally.
Or do you just
gotta
make
be a short list.
Generic video saying goodbye to everyone and then go hang out with someone? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. My gut instinct is to say, no, I don't want to know. And then I was like, I have to unpack why, because I was like, well, it's not for anxiety. And then I was like, I just think our brains are just so heavy on the negativity bias that, like, I feel like I'm just going to inadvertently or very actively obsess about that time or date or whatever. And it's kind of like, I love intentional living because it, like you were saying, is about the present moment. And so it's like, I feel like I'm pretty good with the idea that like it's just going to happen when it happens. And especially coming from like having a cancer diagnosis that was not, I had a good prognosis, but I do have this every 3 months. I have to make sure my tumor's not growing. So like right now I feel really good about that. Like there's no anxiety in each checkup because I'm just like, it's gonna happen if it's gonna happen. Like I'll do as much as I can to be healthy, and then I feel like that's I think it's very interesting to consider knowing tomorrow. Yeah.
A question I have for you though, and this is for both of you, is what about, someone who's like, if I'm gonna go, I'm gonna go. So I'm not gonna wear a mask.
Oh, I've had this conversation a lot with people.
Oh, interesting.
There's this
You
like coming back to like finding the conversation usually revolves around individualism versus like the group.
Yes.
And so finding this happy medium between simultaneously being like, me as an individual is incredibly important, and the group and the well-being of everybody is incredibly important, because I'm human, and without other people, my existence like doesn't mean anything in a sense.
On that same vein, that I feel like is where I started thinking about like, or like we touched upon a little bit, is the if I knew for tomorrow, because it is like, Jeff, you kind of touched on this specifically of like, are you going to quote unquote waste time doing one thing or the other? Like, am I going to spend my last day doing the things that I want, or am I going to spend my last day like helping the people who I care about for when I'm gone, being like, let me have some closure with you because you're going to be alive and I'm not going to be. And it is that also like individual versus like humanity thing. And it is, we want to find this happy medium, but like it's not always possible in an easy way.
Yeah, when you bring that up, who I think of is I think of Chadwick, like Chadwick Boseman, right? Because he got his cancer diagnosis. Who knows if he knew if it was terminal or not, right? Like 3 years out. But he was all in doing those movies and full out acting in them. And maybe he was thinking the whole time, like, this movie might be my last. This movie might be my last. I have to go all in. But then in addition to that, he would go to those cancer wards to visit all of those patients and not talk about about what was going on with him, but just focus on them. And then they would say to him, like, I know I'm going to die, but I'm just trying to stay alive until I'm able to see Black Panther, which then it's just like, oh my gosh, well then I have to stay around a little bit longer because of this. So in that case where he kind of knew that it was a strong possibility, like his whole demeanor may have changed. I don't know if it did or not.
I'm also curious about if I don't know each of you as like super well. So like for me, I'm like spontaneous versus planner. Can be spontaneous, but I'm more of a planner. And I feel like I'm like wondering if I did know, like not in a, oh, I have so much time, or I don't have like you had said, like, is it in 3 years or 30 years or whatever? But like, because I'm a little bit more of a planner, now I'm totally shifting. I'm like, maybe I would want to know, because then I could like do a little bit of both of like, well, what do I want to do? And also to help others, and also to make impact or make whatever time I have left more worthwhile. And if you didn't know, like you could try to do that, but it's harder to prioritize. Prioritizing is like always the issue of like, okay, well, like there's too many things to do, not enough time. What do I want to focus on? And so if you knew if it was like a more structured, this is the timeline, you could really focus. Maybe that would be, maybe I'd want to know, but that stresses me out a little bit. But maybe I do want to know.
But
I don't actually, but I think I might.
I think that's where the challenge is because there's pros and cons to each. And how we react to each one is going to greatly determine whether it was the right choice or not, right? Because you could just obsess the whole time and do nothing and be like, well, I'm going to die anyway. So it's just like, so it really is how you react to it. So when I think of it as like, well, what's the right answer for me? I guess there is no right answer. But I believe if I have to choose one, I would pick the one where I wouldn't want to know. And then I have to but then it also then challenges me to be much more proactive of like living the life that I want to live every day and not get lazy, because it's also the easiest to get lazy, because then I might think I'm going to live forever.
Yeah. I mean, as an intentional living coach, but also from my professional organizing, I think there's I think the definition of lazy for me has really shifted, because in the past I would have just thought like not working is somehow lazy, but I'm like, I want to watch 3 hours of West Coast Customs today, so like I'm gonna do that, versus like I think having this sense of like, it's cool if you're not being like productive, even if you have a limited amount of time left, because we all have a limited amount of time left. It's about the like being aware of that choice and being like, let's do this. Netflix.
Yeah, I think what I mean by lazy is like, I'll put it off till tomorrow.
That was
the thing that I want to do, but I'm gonna be living till I'm 1,000. So
for later. Yeah, thank you for saying that, because that was like the other half of the pieces. I see this in organizing a lot, where people say, the what if, or like, what if I need this later, but also I can do that later. I just have one more year till I retire. Like, just always waiting for the later. It's like, nope, sorry. You might get later and you might not get later. So do it now.
Ooh, I love that. You might get later, you might not get later.
That's a very intense, like,
do it now.
To the point version of that phrase.
That might be the title of this podcast. You might get later, you might not get later. So do it now. Ooh, do you have another card?
I had another thought though.
Oh, go ahead.
That I just because so I clearly went from like I don't want to know to I was like, maybe I do want to know. And all of this
in the span of 5 minutes, you're like, wait a minute, I changed my mind.
There's too many thoughts, but part of me wonders, okay, this is hypothetical. So right, so like part of me is wondering if I would want to know, because the planner part of me being able to like force priority, and then it's just like, okay, well, if that's when that's going to happen, then like XYZ is no longer important, or doing and being able to, and if it was like that is the thing, like that won't change, then it's like, okay, would I take more risks in other ways? Just because and that's in a like death physical sense also, because I do not want to skydive. Yeah. But if I'm not gonna die, maybe I will.
Yeah. That's interesting. So I'm gonna dive with. That's interesting, because you're like, I could dive in with sharks because I know I'm not gonna die here.
Like, I might, because I'm much more of a like, I'm not like so careful, but I'm also like, that feels pretty. A little bit. I mean, like, I'll do fun things, but I'm like, I don't really want to jump off a cliff into water. But if I won't die, I feel like it would be cool, but also like, what if I guess I could get severely injured but not die.
No, because you would then start thinking you're invincible
until a certain date. And like, at least for me, I don't think that I would be like, I don't think I'd fully be like, I'm invincible, but I think I'd get closer and more willing to doing some of the things that I'm like, I don't really want to do that thing.
Like, if I knew I was going to die at 100 and it was guaranteed I was going to die at 100,
that is
and someone told me, hey, you want to go to Mars, for like a decade? I'd be like, yeah, I got time. I got time.
I mean, but then that's also introduces the things of like, okay, like it says if the date that you'll die, but it's also like not necessarily quality of life in between too. I was like, I don't know. So like if it is like 110, but you're like,
That is true.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's hard. But part of me feels like there might be, because of who I am and what it might provide me with in terms of just like
Mhm.
decision making. And it's not just like do what you want for your career or who you spend time with, but the activities you choose and prioritizing other like life things anyway. I feel like maybe I want to know. But then also, if someone was like, "Okay, let me actually tell you," I think I'd
You'd be
panic
like,
and run away.
ah.
Be like, "Never mind, I lied." But I for this hypothetical answer, I think I'm maybe now leaning towards for some of these purposes,
Mhm.
kind of like a fingers crossed that it's not going to be like 150 or like 40. Some, I don't know, where it's like really soon or like really really far away. I was like, I'm hoping it's
Mhm.
somewhere a little later, but I think
Mhm.
maybe it would help.
I can definitely see all of that. Yeah.
This will probably change tomorrow.
That's fine. I think that's how life goes. And, you know, the unanswerable questions about death that we just don't know. So
Ooh, do you have another
in
one?
it.
These are really good. I love these.
Yeah. So there's a few that I think are interesting. The this sort of relates, they all relate. I don't know why I keep saying that, but we're just talking about
The same
knowing.
topic.
And so this one is, if you knew you'd die in a week and money was no object, what 3 bucket list items would you check off of your list?
Okay, preemptive question. Do
Yeah.
you all have like written out or mentally, do you have a bucket list?
I don't.
I don't necessarily either. So part of me is also like, ooh, like what
I
are,
don't.
I don't even, I have to like pull
Yeah.
what those things are either. Because like
That's
I haven't.
totally fair.
Um,
What 3 things would
today-
you do?
Three things. 1 week, money's no object.
Mm-hmm.
No object?
Money is no object.
Jeff got really up in here for that.
Yeah. I
Do
think
you have any answer? Yeah, you go first.
I'll what's coming up for me is I would take my whole family, as many people that could fit on a private big passenger jet, and just go as many places in the world as possible. So I'm with my family, but I also get to like eat all these new things and see all these new places and meet new interesting people, because like I think what I get excited about these days is like connecting with people and seeing my family. And it'd be cool to see all these places that I really wanted to visit in 2020 that kind of didn't happen. Yeah, I feel like just go experience a lot of things and then be like, okay, good, bye.
It's like private, like, I don't know if this is still, but like the Concorde, whatever the faster jets
Yeah,
are, because I was like, you only have a week, so you got to go fast.
Yeah, exactly. Like bougie as hell and gets you there right quick. That's my,
Find time travel, get teleportation device.
Yeah, totally. I love it.
That is a good one. And I like, I mean, part of me is like, yeah, that ditto, but I feel like I should come up with my own. But I do like that. I
No
also
pressure.
like people, and I haven't traveled a lot. Like I've been to some of the states and I've been to a couple of, like a handful of other countries, but nowhere near where I'm interested in. So a part of me is like, that speaks to me. Like I'm just gonna come on your trip.
Great.
And then I'll come up with another answer too, which I don't have yet, I don't think.
That's okay. It can also be like I don't think I know.
I think I know.
There it is.
3 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
One would be, of course, what you said, because you just can't, what your idea of like taking your family or extended family and traveling would be phenomenal. And I think I would do that for like the first 4 to 5 days, right?
Okay.
But then the second thing I would do is during those 4 to 5 days, I would be sending out invitations to everyone that I know and be like, hey, we are all going to, we're all meeting in St. Vincent. That's where my dad is from, right? Mm-hmm. On this 5th day, and you have a plane ticket and a place to stay, and you can come, and this will be your way to say goodbye to me. Like, you know, this so that other people that are not part of my immediate family, that wouldn't want to hang out with us for that long, but like they could come for that 1 to 2 day party. It would be like a last bash party. And part of this comes from, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Meet Joe Black, but it's with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins. Yeah. Check it out. It's actually surprisingly good. But what happens is Anthony Hopkins, near the end of his life, death comes to meet him. And his name is Joe Black. And basically he's like, you're going to die soon, but I'm kind of entertained. So I'm going to hang out here with you and experience life with you. And when I get bored, then I'm going to take you to die. So like the movie culminates with him having this massive party, and then he leaves after that party. Like, so he has his last hurrah. So that's kind of where the idea came from. So it's not original. And then the last thing I would do, because it's my third wish, is I would take billions of dollars and I would be giving that shit away to specific organizations and individuals that I know would fuck things up and like flip the patriarchy and flip the system and blow open, you know, all of the, just the kingdoms that are currently, that exist, you know, where there's just only certain people that have money and other people don't. And I would be seeding that throughout my travels. Maybe I'm not even doing it. Someone else is doing it. Yeah. So it's being delegated. You can hire someone. But it's just like, and each time someone's like, well, does this person deserve money? It's like, yes, they all do. But in a way that doesn't affect inflation, but it gives all these people power that currently don't have power. So that when I leave, whether they remember me or not, I will have messed up the whole system so that more people can benefit instead of it benefiting just a few. That is what I would do. Goodbye.
Those are also great ideas. Mm-hmm. I like the idea of the party thing too, because family and experience. The thing about is experiences, right? Experiences, and then potentially, if you want legacy impact, which is like what Jeff, you're talking about, like how can I fix stuff for when I'm not here anymore. But I love experiences and people. So I have no creativity on this one, because Julia had a great idea and Jeff has a great idea. I want to have a party. I want to have a traveling. I will say that for the sake of time, I probably would say I don't have to or want to choose Europe, because you could do that and get so many places so quickly. So it would probably be specifically Europe. But I miss events and currently where we're in, but I enjoy it, a good barbecue, family holiday, something, anybody's birthday gathering. I don't mine, someone else's, let's all hang out and have a good time. Take some pictures, make some memories. Because even if it's not for the greater world, again, we have a week and then I'm not there anymore, then at least there's these memories and images and proof, not proof, but sort of a tangible thing for anyone else who was involved, who is continuing on. Yeah, I don't think I have a more creative answer. Jeffrey.
You just reminded me of another idea. At the party that I would have, Because again, like, do I care to be remembered? I don't know if I care to be remembered or not. A part of me wants to be, but I think that's the selfish part of me. But more so, what I would love is I would love that my life has an impact on someone else's life to take some action that they haven't taken. So I would love at the party some booth or something where people have to commit to doing something that they right now are scared to do, that they have not done, but they really want to do. Which they would then receive this email or whatever it is, video back a year from now asking them if they've done it.
If they've fallen through.
It would be an AI you in the video. So they're like, hey, I know I'm gone, but did you do the thing?
There's another card that is similar to that I pulled, which is
Look
a
at
message
us.
from beyond. And if you could send one post-death message from beyond, what would you tell your family? Or friends, I think. Fair enough. Chosen family, like, anybody.
Yeah. Like a chosen
I'm gonna modify that.
Specific group. Like not just like all of my friends, but like this group of friends or this family, whatever. Ooh, what would I tell them?
You get one message. It does not specify length of message or type of message.
Yeah, I find it challenging for me because a part of me would want to be like, yo, this place that I'm at is so interesting. Let me tell you what it's all about. Yeah. But if I could not send that message, I think then it would just be a message of gratitude, you know, like, thanks for being on the journey with me, and maybe partly reminiscing on the things that like made my life most worth living with them. And that you don't have to, and part of that would be also like, and now you don't have to worry about me, you know, because I think a lot of times it's interesting, the living worry about the dead when we really probably should be worrying about ourselves.
Right. I think that my version is like, I like the gratitude thing too, because it is just like you all helped make me and keep doing that for other people. But it's also like, I don't know what state, like, I mean, I'm able to make some message from wherever I am, but I feel like hopefully, I'm assuming, I could tell them like, I'm fine, don't worry about me. Because it is like that. I feel like a lot of times that when you think about someone or something like a pet or a person or whatever that is no longer there, sometimes you're just like, oh, like, did I care about them enough, or like, I wish they were here so I could like show them some love or whatever. And like that feeling for the living is sometimes what, like, it's that FOMO unknown thing. So it's just kind of like, I'm fine and I really enjoyed our time together and I want you to like make the most of whatever you have, like that kind of a message. Because I wouldn't, like, I feel weird because in the like, in that I don't want to be like, I don't know how to say what I want to say. I think that I don't think that like I'm so important, but like part of me is like, I don't necessarily want to be forgotten, but not in like the greater world way, but in like the people who cared about me. Like, I hope that like good memories come up every so often, but also like, don't worry, like maybe don't forget me, but like, don't worry.
That makes sense. That makes total sense. I think, assuming that I'm not just reporting on whatever state I'm currently in, because I'm like, if I can let people know what the afterlife is like, I'm gonna do that. But assuming it's not so much that, reporting on current conditions, I'd be like, I'm reporting to you. I turned into a llama and I live in Argentina now, you know, like that kind of
but
thing.
It's fascinating.
It's real.
And you actually get to choose the animal. It's amazing.
Yeah. So assuming that's not the case, I think I would just send back like my like usual, what they would have heard from me on any given day in an
Yeah.
email or a text message of just like,
Yeah.
keep doing the things. And then I'll probably sign off as you might get later and you might not get later, because my family and friends have just been so subjected to my big existential musings on life. I feel like that's only fitting that I just like drop more bombshells on them. And we're like,
PS.
bye. Yeah.
So the like also slightly more, because I wanted to answer like truthfully for sure, but then also the sort of like more playful, fun part of me is like, okay, if I could send a message from beyond, but it's not like literally like message, it'd be like kind of how you just said, like I have been told I have certain catchphrases that I just had like used enough that people make fun of me for them and say them back at me.
Me too.
Yep. So I feel like, and it would just be like, if I could get everybody that I know and care about, or like the family or friends, like even if it was like my family, but they're in like different households or something, but if everybody just had like felt the inkling to like get Chinese food on the same day, and like they all opened their fortune cookies and every single member got like a thing that said, it's going to be great.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Like, and they just be like, oh, what's your say? What's your say? And it'd just be like this weird sort of like, whoa, message feeling of just like serendipitous, kind of magical, but not so straightforward message, but like, it's fine. Something like that.
I love that.
It's interesting because so my dad passed away in 2015, and my mom and I celebrated their anniversary, which was on October 14th. So that was like last week. And she contacted me and she's like, hey, can we go to the cemetery? And after that get like early dinner, right? And while we were there, it was like super windy, like at the cemetery. And then it was also super windy at the restaurant. And I told my mom, I was like, I always feel Dad is saying hi when wind gusts hit. Like there's like almost a, like, hey, I'm here. Like I'm here. And that's the message. That's it. It's not like more complicated than that, but it's like, I'm here. Almost like I got your back. I'm here. I'm present. And I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not true. Like, who knows, right? No one can ever tell me whether it isn't or isn't. But there is something calming and fulfilling about thinking about it that way.
Would you want to be a wind gust for your people or something, or like?
I mean, if it made them feel the way I felt, yeah, maybe. If there was something that every time it happened, there's I've been seeing the number 66 up a lot, and I don't know if I started seeing it after my dad. And at first I was like, oh, 66 is not a good number, because like 666 is not a good number or something like that. But the meaning behind 66, I think,
like a general meaning.
Yeah, like in numerology, the number, I'm looking this up. The numerology number 66 is an optimistic idealist. Its ideals tend to be creatively expressed. So whenever I see the number 66 now, I'm not like bad about it. I'm just like, oh, interesting. Like it inspires creativity. Oh, maybe that's my dad, or maybe that's my music teacher. Maybe that's, Nadia Medina, who really impacted my life. Like there's a part of me that thinks that there's meaning behind some of these things.
That reminds me of how there are also more, I don't know if this is actually, but I feel like this is more common, not knowledge, but common like mythology, but like hummingbirds. I don't know if I'm also misquoting or like whatever it means to me, is if it's close but off, but like I feel like it's like when there's hummingbirds, it's like either someone's like thinking about you or something like that. And growing up, part of my growing up, we had like a bay window by our little kitchen nook where I'd like do homework, and it was right next to the kitchen. So like sometimes my mom was around, my dad was around, but we had a hummingbird or birds would like come to the window, and it was weird because they'd like hover. Like we didn't have any plants accessible from this window, that we didn't have any inside that they like thought they could get to, but they'd like go to the window and like hover, and then my mom specifically would be like, oh hi, and like wave, and then they'd fly away. So much that like it wasn't just like a hover and leave. Like sometimes I feel like they like hung out, like not until, but kind of. And so like with that, now whenever that kind of, with both of my parents have passed away, I'm just like, whenever I see hummingbirds, I was like, oh, hummingbirds. It's like, they're like, hey, hi friends. So like that's like a similar thing for me that is like common, but almost like I feel like I hold tighter because of that growing up as well. So it's like the wind and hummingbirds and the things, and like the secret messages are almost I feel like it's maybe like not more meaningful, but could be, because it's like there's like a whimsy to it, versus like an actual message, which I kind of like, because then people can kind of take it however they want, which again is like us being worried about other people because it's no longer about us thing.
Yeah, that's lovely. More hummingbirds, please.
My mom recently said to me that she had a dream that my dad was not happy that we were not thinking about him enough. And at first, I also felt really guilty because I was like, oh, I am not thinking about him enough. And then I was like, well, I'm like, oh, gosh, I got to think about him enough. And then I'm like, what does that mean to think about him more? And then I was just like, would someone on the other side care? Like, would they care in that way? Because I think I mentioned this last time in The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. It's part of the Dark Materials books. At the end, or around the end of Amber Spyglass, like basically some kids get stuck in Hades or some earthly realm or whatever it is, and this guy uses this subtle knife to release everyone. And as they release, they can't go back to Earth because they've already gone down to this really unfortunate place, but then they disappear into like gold dust, and everything is free as soon as they are able to walk out. So, and then they said something about they just enter back into the ether, into this like larger thing. And when you're in that larger thing, are you really then, you let go of earthly possessions and the idea that like you need to be missed, right? Because you're part of something so much bigger than you. So then I didn't feel as guilty after that, because I was like, no, I don't think he would think that way. He'd be happy. I think it would be happy that, but he wouldn't be judgmental. I don't think of people that have died as judgmental after they've died. I don't know if y'all feel that way.
I think the hope is that we lose our judgmental, like it sounds like such a burden to like carry that on. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be judgmental. But I do think that brings up like, and we don't have to dive too far into this, but cultural expectations. It made me think of the movie Coco and the idea of, losing their memory, and because it continues their soul. So I think there's other people would say, yeah, you got to think about them all the time.
Yeah. That's a really good point.
That's true. Oh, the cultural expectations. It's so we need to make another.
But the thing that's powerful about Coco is you don't want to forget them, because you don't want to forget their essence of who they are. It's not even like forgetting them just for the forgetting. It's more the idea of like the essence of them, because holding on to that essence allowed Coco to be able to play the music that he's able to play, to embrace that, right? So I think that's the nuance part. It's not just missing them, but it's also missing the impact that they're having. And by me living in a certain way, I am now continuing their legacy.
In a totally different but related vein of this, like the judgment thing, where you're like, I feel like that's like too much like work and effort. Like can't you just be fine now? But I don't like horror as a theme of things, but I feel like there are those ghosts.
None of us like horror. Oh, that's so
those ghosts are the judgmental haunting ones.
Yes.
They're judgmental. Yes. I don't want those. But I think that there might be some, maybe there are some judgmental ghosty people.
Yes, I was just saying this. My husband likes computer games, and I often watch YouTube videos about games with him. And there's a video gamer, YouTuber, Donkey, and he just posted a video about it's like a haunted zombie ghost game. And I was like, but why is the ghost in the house trying to kill the person all the time? I don't get it. Like, what is the point of that? Like, if I came back as a ghost, I'd be like, can I eat a burrito, please? Like, I feel like I have other things that I'd rather do than like arbitrarily kill someone in a dark house.
I don't get it. You're not a judgmental ghost.
Yeah, I know. But I like just, I was like, let you go.
Well, here's the other question that comes up for me. Why do you all hate scary movies?
Stressful.
Well, there's different, okay. For the sake of this, there's different kinds of scary movies because there's like gory scary versus like haunty scary versus like killer, like not necessarily gory version, but like suspense killer horror. So like there's
I'm talking about like horror, like ghostly, the stuff that ties in with death, right? That like death is coming back in some form to take over,
I mean, for me, it just feels like I really like to learn, and I don't feel like it's helpful for living the kind of life that I want to like scare the shit out of myself about something that probably isn't going to happen. And like, if it does happen later, let's just deal with it in the moment. I don't know about the zombies and the things. I'd rather have I don't know, like watch a documentary about someone's life that's different from my experience or something. That's and it's scary, and I want to close my eyes. Mm-hmm. Too much empathy.
We have an empath. It's too much.
Yeah, too much.
I feel like mine. I don't know if I have a solid answer because I haven't thought about this as hard because I'm just like, nope, don't want that. Weird feeling, scary. But I think okay. When I watch those movies, I feel like it gets very psychological for me because I'm also very vivid imagination. So then like if I watch something with friends in their well-lit home and then it's nighttime and I leave and I'm like, what was that noise? What was that? Something moved. Like it's that version, but I don't, on the flip side of that, when I'm out in the daylight and I haven't watched a scary movie, when there are noises, I'm like, what is that? I'm just less freaked out about it. So it's not just that, it's just like a heightened something you can't control bad is happening. And it's not necessarily about the death part, maybe in the horror movie category. It's not necessarily about like the death thing. It's the like the bad things happening, non-control of something. I mean, I guess maybe that's because it's like especially if it's like ghosty, like I can't fight whatever's happening and it's bad stuff. And I don't want, like, I'm intentional living. Like, please, I don't need extra bad stuff. Just the normal whatever bad things was fine.
I agree. Yes, I agree.
I think it's that.
Yeah, like when I think of scary movies, the first thing I think of is like, why do I want that bad juju? I don't want that bad juju. Like I have like when someone would be like, hey, you want to play Ouija board? When I was in high school, I'd be like, no,
like,
why
would
why would I want to do all that? Like, no way, dude.
Yeah, like, let me call this like not necessarily like spirits and like potentially unknown. We don't know the answers. Like, why are we gonna try and find out
with this? Why are we poking this, dude?
Yes, it's poking. It's poking.
It's like you're poking this thing that and I believe it too. Like I remember, you'll love this, Lord. Wait, Julia, do you also live in California?
I do currently, yeah.
Okay, so you know I-5, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my car breaks down on I-5, right? Like right in the middle of like the cow mist, all that. And it takes like 4 or 5 hours for someone to pick me up. And like semis are going past and they're so fast that they are like shaking my car, even though my car is 10 feet away. And it was the first time I'm thinking, I was like, man, there must be a lot of accidents here. So then AAA comes by to pick me up. And that guy, we're like going to drive for the next like 30 minutes, dragging my car. And I was like, hey, what's happened? And we start talking about ghost stories. And he's only been on the job for a year. And he's like, I have so many. And he would refer to like one where he like towed a truck up, because he, as the AAA guy, has to get all the cars that crash. Like after the cops come and the ambulance and everyone takes, they're still there. And sometimes there's a body still in there and they can't get it out. So AAA, so he's pulled cars up onto his like, bed of his truck and started driving. And he said one time he saw someone back there. Like he really believed he saw someone. And then another time he was fixing someone else's thing, and then he saw some person that was 5 feet away and was just like, hey man, you got to get off the road. I don't know where you appeared. And that person just kind of like floated away. And then I was like, I don't know if I believe this, but I do believe this. But then another AAA guy the next day had to drive me back from Lodi all the way back to Oakland. And it was like a 2 to 3 hour drive. Same experience. So there is a part of me that really does believe in ghosts. So why would I disrespectfully watch movies about them and potentially bring them to my doorstep when I really don't have to?
Yeah, that. Like, I think it's that. It's like, why am I trying to, I don't know what, like bring or make more, like disturb whatever has happened. Like I just want to be here.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
have to go watch
So,
I have to go watch some like cartoons after this.
So the question then, I know I'm getting scared just talking about this, by the way. But so the question for both of you is like, do you believe in ghosts, or do you believe in like spirits like here and visiting us and all that?
I waffle on it a lot. Lauren, you can talk if you'd like.
You can go ahead.
I waffle on it a lot. A big part of me really feels like, especially when you dive into like string theory and other dimensions, that there is very much the possibility that our life experience is just happening concurrently with history in a way that just sometimes doesn't fully intertwine, because I know too many people and I have had my own, like I've never seen a ghost or a spirit or like a whatever you want to call it, but I do like get crazy anxiety before an earthquake, and it's always this weird like formless, and I'm like, why am I freaking out? And then there's an earthquake. So like there are certain intuitions and other experiences like that, including other people who've seen shadows and spirits and people, that it just feels like it's totally within the realm of possibility in my mind.
I feel like I'm kind of there also, but it's like the yes and no, and I can't think about it too hard.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, because like when it's like, it's also I also want to dwell on for a second, like vocabulary and how with so many things, like certain words have connotations and it's from like history or it's just been like funneled that way or whatever. But like ghost feels scary because it's like horror and ghost stories and campfire and like whatever. And like that, like if I need to think about that, it like I start to be kind of like, I don't know, I don't like this. But if it's like, okay, like spirits feels more open. Yeah, like, or just like it's not so negative, scary, bad things. And like it could be like spirit things are more of like, it could be maybe that, hopefully not, but it's more of the like the wind gusts and the hummingbirds, or like then when you're like, I just like there was like a wave of calm and I don't know why before I took this test, but I was like, and if it's like those things, I think that there's definitely things like bigger things, forces, something at work, kind of like you were like where's like dimension, what things like there's something, I have no idea what. I like to think that it's a well-intentioned grade or something, because then I don't freak myself out so much. But yeah, I feel like that's definitely possible in the sense that it's not just like, you know, what people like seen, not seen, whatever, or believe. It's not like, oh, I believe in heaven or afterlife or reincarnation. Like I like other than that, just like forces, spirits, somethings are at work in some way or another, and not constantly necessarily, but I think that's we've all had that like feeling, or that just like it's kind of like luck, sort of. There's like a serendipitous thing where you're like, that's weird how that worked out, or that's weird why I felt that way, or that's weird. That's what I feel like it's tied to, without it being specifically like the ghost of this person or animal or whatever, like without it being that specific. I feel like it's more of like the ether thing you kind of talk about from the book. It's more something like that. Yep.
I feel like we sometimes make things simplistic by being like, yeah, there's a haunted ghost in this house. This ghost is haunting the house, you know, because it's very ego driven. It's very just human centric. Like even when I think of something like aliens, you know, everyone's creation of aliens looks exactly like humans. They're just slimier. And it's just like, seriously, really? Like this is the level? This is the level, people? Come on. Like what if aliens were just air? How about that? Like we're not even thinking about, like we're just, so, you know, it's the same thing with God. He's just like, yeah, it's just this dude, you know, and he's just like sitting on a cloud being like, and it's like, really? That is it? And it looks like you? Oh, look how long it looks exactly like you. That's, come on, people. Like, can we be a little bit more, impressed by the universe to think of something outside bigger than this? So, yeah.
Yeah. I like it. It makes me think of that the same way of like the judgmental haunty ghosts and things like that. I was like, we're not that important. Like,
I know they have the whole universe to explore. Why would they come hang out with you at Subway?
Yeah. Like we're just all part of this moving world of things. Like they don't need to come get me. There's not I'm not useful or important to them.
Oh.
That actually makes me feel a little better.
That does make me feel better too. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
Deep breath, everybody. Oh man. Got a little bit shaken at that end of that.
Do you have any other cards? As I really love that one.
I mean, she has many cards.
I do have many, but it feels like we're right in this perfect bubble of
that is true.
This is the container today.
But I do like this. And I was like, I enjoy doing this. And we didn't really talk about traditional things, but I am still really curious about like talking about with others, like what any of us know about any of them, or personal versions, because I think that's really interesting too. And I know we didn't get to that, but I'm not mad about it because this was super interesting and also scary a little bit.
Oh, we covered a lot of topics.
We did cover a lot of topics.
It is true.
We ended on a Halloween vibe. Maybe that's why I felt like the containers
let's
that
just-
like ghosts.
we're done now.
Halloween vibe, which is hilarious. And I just watched Coco, but I think I'm going to watch it again.
Yeah, I just set up I have an organizing client who I still work for, and on Monday I set up their Halloween decorations. Because that's part of what I do.
Wow,
So there's a lot of like ghosts made out of sheets and styrofoam tombstones and like the whole million yards of
Okay, so then as we're wrapping up, is there anything that you like take away or resonate most from this conversation?
What we've covered.
Or what it inspires, if not like a recap, but like what does it inspire from this?
My first thought was just like the thing that kind of always comes up with anything that circles around like death, which is the balance point of like living in life, is the like live for the like it has all kind of circled around there. Like, are you doing what you want to be doing? Like, can you find ways to do the things that you want to do or talk to people you want? And like, if you don't want to talk to that person, politely stop talking to that person. So like that, but I feel like that's like always is going to come up, but like that feels like it came up more specifically today. And then for me, especially, I mean, I don't really know what this means at present day, but it made me that one question about the do we want to know or not know the date or age or whatever it was. And it made me think like, okay, maybe I could be slightly less cautious, like well thought out, but like less like averse to like danger, bad. As things become more open and safer in the world of things. But like on like vacations and what activities you choose to do, or like being more spontaneous things, because I can, but sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I can really timing and like, no, just do it. It's fine. So maybe that for me.
I love that. I could probably also have that as my takeaway as a planner. My trip to Hawaii last year had a very serious spreadsheet involved.
I too. It was a lot of places I needed to eat.
I know I wanted to make sure to get all the beaches in, and I mean not all of them because there's a million, but
the highlights.
Yeah, I think I feel like I'm still coming back to just like reaffirming this sense of like, I don't know what I don't know, and I probably won't know any of what I don't know. And so like, just keep on keeping on, do the things you like, watch your West Coast customs. Just like do the things. Yeah.
One thing I do want to say to you about that too, because when we talked about the lazy thing, I also saw, I don't know if it was like somebody posted or if it was like a nice text thing or whatever, but posted something where it's just like, lazy isn't lazy. Lazy is just you resting.
Yes.
Like lazy is what other people call you.
Yes.
But it's really just you resting.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, am I right about that? That's fascinating. Yes.
Yeah. I was just saying to my husband the other day, he's always worried about being lazy. And I was like, but I think lazy is when you know you have responsibilities and you actively decide that you're a better person by not fulfilling those responsibilities. Or that someone else should be doing it for you. And for me, that feels like lazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
because when I think of lazy, there's a lot of shoulding then on myself.
Yeah.
Of like, I should do this, I should that. And then it's like, who's shoulding on me? Is it me? Or or someone else telling me that I need to be shoulding on myself? Because I love that.
Right. So lazy is shoulding, and you're really just choosing to rest.
Oh, I'm gonna make a video about that. That's so good. I love that. I guess the takeaway, well, first off, I love these conversations. I don't know why, but there's such a calming, it might be you, Julia, or it might be you, Lauren, or it might be a combination of all of us, but there's a calming feeling in a way that's much deeper than a majority of the conversations that I have in a given month. Just massively. And maybe it's because we're talking about death, something that no one usually talks about, that I always leave these conversations not as scared about it. Like not as scared about talking about it, not as scared about thinking about it, not as scared about it happening to me. And then because of that, then I feel like this wave of like dopamine and like endorphins that are like, yo, dude, go live. Like, go live. Like, if there's any message you're getting from this today, Jeff, it's, what did you say earlier, Julia? Like, not right now. It could be right. Wait, it could be later. It might be later.
You might get later, but you might not get later.
And the last part
did it cut out? Yeah. You might get later, but you might not get later. So
but you said either way, do it now.
Yeah, I was like, go do it.
Go do it. Yes.
Yeah.
And I love that because it's just like, why even spend time worrying about whether it is going to happen or it isn't going to happen? Like, if it's right in front of you and you have an inkling to do something, then do it. And, and in a lot of the interviews that I do, people are like, well, how do I do it? Like, how do I play more? How do I follow my curiosity? And I've come up with this new analogy of like, I go, well, I was at this winery once and I was talking to this wine guy, and this wine guy, I said to him, I was like, I don't know anything about wine. Like, I know nothing about it. I'm like super ignorant about it. And the wine guy, who's like very skilled and been there for, decades or whatever, was like, if you like it, you keep drinking it. If you don't like it, you stop drinking it. It was like so freaking simple. And I was like, how come we can't live life like that? You do something until you not like it. And then you do something else until you like it. It's not that complicated, but we make it so complicated. Stop making it so complicated. Let's just do it.
Amen.
All right. Well, this has been a lovely conversation. Thank you so much, all of you. And for anyone listening, I hope you enjoyed it. Take care.